Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sterling Live. My name is Caitlin Brower. I am Sterling's social media manager, and Sterling Live is our weekly live series across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, where we honestly just deliver like great content week after week. It's thought leadership, it's product, it's everything that we really want to talk about. And I got to tell you, our episodes so far in 2022 have been phenomenal, and I don't think there's going to be anything different today with this episode. So as you can see, I have two great guests above me here, and you can see our topic at the bottom of the screen. So let's go ahead and get into it. My guests today are Tim Stokes, Head of Sales for EMEA at Sterling, and Wendy Muirhead, Managing Director and Regional Leader for Ceridian, EMEA. And as you can see, our topic is at the bottom of the screen. Today, we're talking about candidate communication, how to get it right from first touch point to day one on the job. Tim, Wendy, thank you so much for joining me today on Sterling Live. Tim, you're no stranger to Sterling Live. You've been on with me already. Wendy is new to the live show today, but hey, we're going to get you back probably in the future. But I'm so excited to have you both. So Tim, can you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, Caitlin. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name's Tim Stokes. I head up sales at Sterling in EMEA. Fortunate to work with a fantastic enterprise and SMB team in the UK and Europe and the Middle East, as well as a solutions function and partner team as well. Great today to be joined by Wendy from our fantastic partner at Ceridian. And Wendy and I have been looking forward to this conversation for a while now. So some really interesting topics to discuss.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a great discussion. I'm very excited, as should our entire audience. Wendy, welcome to Sterling Live. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Very happy to, and I'm delighted to be here today. And as Tim says, we love the partnership that we share with Sterling, so thank you for having us. I'm Wendy Muirhead. I look after our growth customer experience across all of EMEA, and our organization is really recognized for our flagship HCM technology platform, Dayforce, which helps organizations from hire through to retire and everything in between. We're a global organization, and we have over 5,500 customers across the world that we service, and we love the partnership that we have with Sterling. And this is a really important topic. We hear a lot from our customers today around how to make sure you get the best talent and how do you make sure you keep the best talent. So I'm really excited to dive into the discussion today. Thanks again.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us. A very important topic indeed. You know, leading up to today's episode, we were like hearing the excitement, getting the excitement across social media. Our internal teams were so excited to, hear this discussion today. So I do want to remind our audience right now, if you are watching live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, if you have questions for Tim and Wendy throughout the show, please don't hesitate, ask away, or just make any type of commentary. But you'll go in the comment section on each platform, and that's how you'll submit your questions or your comments. And I'll get them over to Tim and Wendy as I see fit throughout the show. So let's go ahead and get into it. So Tim, I'm coming to you first with this first question. So why is candidate communication such a hot topic right now?
Yeah, I think candidate experience in general has been a hot topic for a long time, and quite rightly so. With that, communication plays a pivotal role in the overall candidate experience. And throughout a recruitment journey, a candidate should walk away with a positive impression despite the result, right? Which is going to impact a company's recruitment brand and their reputation. If we look at last year, or the end of last year, we had a record number of job vacancies, like north of 1 million in the UK. Unemployment fell to 4.2%, and we find ourselves in this great resignation. And the war for talent is real. Mm-hmm. Skill shortages across a number of industries are clear to see, and we find ourselves in a candidate-led market. Business is under pressure to retain their workforce, and at the same time focus on identifying and sourcing new hires remains a priority. So when a company does find the right person, companies need to do everything they can to get that person to day one in the job sooner and then keep them. And I think we'll see over the course of this discussion, communicating really well with candidates is key to success. So to keep a candidate engaged in the process, to keep them informed and interested, and to provide insight are areas that have to be a focus for TA leaders and their strategy, especially in today's market. There needs to be more of an emphasis on candidate communication than ever before.
Absolutely. So, Wendy, I'm guessing this aligns closely with what Ceridian and your customers are experiencing in the market right now. So, can you just kind of elaborate, like how? I mean, I was guessing. I think I am right, but can you provide a little bit more for our audience on that?
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right. And, even through this mechanism, just look how you're communicating through social media and different forums. And, Tim's right. The war for talent is real. It's happening. It's right now. And it's all about how do you, ensure that recruitment ad rather than it being there for months on end. How do we try and get the talent and experienced people in place? Because organizations, especially with the pandemic, they're losing those long-term, tenured, experienced resources in their organization. And they're not just resources, they're people. We had a Manpower global survey last autumn that actually represented about 70% of employers were having difficulty in filling those open positions, which, to Tim's point, it was a 15-year high. And we've also found from our latest research, we've just released the Ceridian Pulse for Talent for 22. And that's a data collection from over 6,800 workers around the globe, including over 1,000 organizations here in the UK and Ireland. And what that shared with us was that employers are struggling with skills shortages and filling those open positions. And they learned that basically 61% of the employees are flight risk. 38% were open to the right opportunity right now, and 23 were actively looking. But recruiting and keeping your best talent, well, it is solvable if you think in a slightly different way about your people. And, it goes without saying, there's competitive pressures from a compensation, a flexibility, and an opportunity for growth. Those things are critical when people are looking at new opportunities, but they're not enough to simply attract the best candidates and then keep them for the long term. What we've found is that employee career decisions are based on more than just how they're paid, but actually, can it be a big opportunity for employers? Something we've seen is by offering competitive compensation and benefit, it's actually really important to identify with each unique individual, what their career aspirations are and how you can bridge the gap of where they're going in that whole succession planning for the business opportunity as well. And when you marry those things together, then, you're not only thinking about the candidate experience, but also the employee experience and the succession planning and the journey from really throughout that whole experience. And more importantly, it's delivering on that very promise that you make from first interview, first communication point, and actually how a business does that. And so I think coming back to your point on communication, technology can help interact in so many different ways. And that's where, the solutions of what Tim and I offer in the market to help organizations to do that can really help.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of eye-opening data points that you just went over. And it reminds me of something that I heard recently where the shift with where we are working right now, we used to, work to live, to survive, your working jobs, you're doing just kind of what you need to do to survive. But now people are actually out there living and work is secondary. So they are choosing and they're being very particular with what they want to do. And to your point, Wendy, sometimes it's not just about, the compensation and the salary. It's really, do you enjoy what you're doing? Do you enjoy who you're with? And do you stand with the brands that you are working for? So a lot of great data points there for sure. I do want to point out, if you're watching live on LinkedIn right now, Jane Lacey has put the link to the 2022 Pulse of Talent report from Ceridian in the comment section. So please go ahead and check out that report from Ceridian, as Wendy just, rattled off a bunch of great data. So definitely take a look at that for sure. So I want to talk about something that's interesting for both of our organizations, for Sterling and Ceridian, because we're across multiple industries, we're global organizations. And Tim, you did touch on this a little bit earlier, around the differences in industry sectors. So I would love if you can comment on that a little bit more, but also when we're looking at this, can we look at some of the considerations that like these employers need to bear in mind? So Tim, I'm coming to you first, but Wendy, hold tight. I'm coming to you too for this question.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that leisure, retail, hospitality have been hit hard as we come out of the pandemic. We at Sterling have certainly seen demand to support in that area recently a lot. We've seen more traditional business bounce back as well, such as financial services, professional services, industry and manufacturing. But we're really seeing demand for non-permanent talent growing rapidly, right? So this reliance on gig, temporary workers to fill immediate gaps is increasing. I think this year it's predicted that 7.25 million people will actually work as an independent contractor or as a contingent worker, right? So the world of work is changing. And then in today's skill scarce market, engaging talent through non-standard working arrangements, right, enables businesses to not only plug immediate gaps, but actually to access specialist skills that they'd be hard pushed to acquire on a permanent basis. And we're seeing that in our world at Sterling with this kind of real growth in contingent and gig workers. Now, this is really, really crucial. So in terms, to answer your question, some considerations, what businesses can't do, I cannot stress this high enough, is cut corners when it comes to risk mitigation, right? So a company cannot afford to put down its guard and not comply with regulatory requirements or put its people or its business or its people at risk. So it's important that the correct practices for risk mitigation and background screening, I know this is more relevant to background screening, continue despite this race for talent and the urgency to get bums on seats. So I think just to answer your question, Caitlin, I mean, we've seen a variety of different industries, volumes increase and some actually reduce. But I think companies have to follow the correct protocol whilst this kind of race for talent continues.
I agree. Definitely a crucial time to not cut corners, like you said, really like honing in on the areas to just make your organization safer in regards to background screening, like you had said. Wendy, I would love your thoughts on this.
I'm going to take it from a slightly different lens. So, the pandemic has really fast forwarded us through on digitalization, and organizations that are embracing technology have found it a real challenge, to be able to get new talent, to grow. How do they communicate to their employees if people are on furlough and off furlough? So, that's the sort of lens where we've seen digitalization in general has definitely got to every boardroom agenda. And if it hasn't been discussed, it's certainly being discussed just now. But, again, really important point Tim raised about the regulatory side of it and making sure that you're keeping the communication going so you keep a great candidate experience, but you're actually doing all the regulatory checks and it's different in every country. So actually having the technology to help keep you honest and keep you right as things change inevitably, that's where the technology side can really help and support. And again, that's why we have got many mutual shared customers that we both adore, that have that start to end seamless experience with our partnership because of the fact that we can help them deliver great candidate experiences. They have amazing background checks and screenings. It's all being done compliantly with right to work checks, and then the rest of the engagement when they start day one, we actually have a little bit of confetti that comes across our system. They've arrived day one, but
I love that.
part of the team before they join. So and in some countries, we've been growing globally ourselves. And I have an amazing leader in the DACH region. She might be watching. And it was 6 months was her notice period. And so, that's a long time to wait while she ended her agreement with her employer before moving over. And that communication, that cadence, getting her networked in so that she felt like she was part of our team. We didn't do anything but make introductions, and that communication about the culture and what life's like here in our organization. We want people to come in and be really super pumped about what we're going to go and do for our customers. So, that's where the technology and the partnership and making sure that you stay compliant. Well, compliance is on every boardroom's agenda. So making sure you do the right thing is always imperative.
I really, really liked that example, specific, to your organization, your team. I think that was a really, really good one to share with our audience for sure. So Tim, can you elaborate a little bit more on just like some practical considerations that are just practical things that employers need to keep in mind here?
Yeah, I think if you look at the start of the hiring process, and this was mentioned a moment ago, one of the key steps is setting expectations up front with the candidate. So they know what will be asked of them and have some idea of the timeline of the hiring process. If it isn't done properly, the candidate can go from being delighted, right, being offered the job, to suddenly feeling lost or alienated, and as everything goes quiet. And it's hardly surprising in today's market that some candidates get lured away by competitors or get fed up and start proactively looking elsewhere. And frequent candidate engagement, utilizing the tools that you have to your disposal as a recruiter, will improve candidate satisfaction, mitigate risk of losing out on the candidate, and provide like a seamless candidate journey. Companies need to let candidates know what the next steps are going to be, regular check-ins with them to update them until that first day and beyond, and start feeding information on their new role, things like logistics of joining, the teams that they'll be working with, buddy systems, what's their week one of onboarding look like, that schedule. You think back, Caitlin, to what it was like in the build up to your first day in previous jobs. We can all remember it.
Yeah.
It's daunting, right? Stepping into a new chapter of your life, right? And not knowing what to expect. So the more reassurance you can give to your candidates, the more comfortable that they're actually going to feel. This is the case as well that employers need to spell out any kind of onboarding processes, things that they're going to have to go through before they start. In our world, in screening, as you know, it's background checks. At first glance, candidates can feel a little frightened or daunting about what's going to happen. But when they actually understand how the process works, the things that they can prepare for in advance to speed up the process, they're actually likely to be more responsive and return the checks sooner. And as part of this process, if you communicate the why behind why you're doing it, why you're doing these checks, such as creating safer environments or to comply with regulatory policies, it's actually going to enhance your brand. So, some vendors like Sterling go to lengths to make this even easier for employers by providing candidate guidance videos, FAQs, dedicated support teams, and also a mobile first platform and a candidate hub that just make it easier for candidates. So that lots of different touch points where communication is crucial all the way through the recruitment process.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you had said, like you think about like that first time when you're moving into a new like organization, you're moving a new opportunity. I've only been with Sterling for 2 years, so that is fresh in my mind. It wasn't long ago before taking that next step and joining a new organization. And then on Sterling Live over the past year or so, I've had a lot of people on our people and culture team on these shows really explaining kind of like that day one and then your 90-day plan. So, I must give definitely a shout out to Sterling. So I think we do a phenomenal job with making sure that people know what they need to do day one. And then here's the next 3 months for you. Here's what you're going to do. So very important for sure. So both of your points here, I think we're getting into the topic of candidate experience now. So making sure that communication is there, but what is that overall experience for them? And Tim, I know you just touched on briefly mobile a bit. So I want to talk about technology. So I think this is a great shift for us here. So Wendy, I'm going to come to you first. So can you explain a little bit like where technology comes in and how it helps with the entire candidate communication experience, everything like that?
Well, this is my favorite part, right? And I'm going to be brutally honest with everybody right now, because my team, as they join, they've all told me that they've had amazing onboarding experiences. And the reality is I'm not that good, right? Like, truly, I'm not that good. The technology that we use is actually what helps me, remember. Because when we're all busy doing work. I'm a mother of 3. We've got lots of stuff going on at Ceridian as we expand globally and support our customers. But it's the technology that helps me make sure that I have done my check-ins and that I've got all the right things and that I've ordered the right equipment. And I remember many, many, many years ago, I started and I didn't have a computer on first day. And I felt like, did they forget about me? It didn't feel good, right? Yeah. And so just even the basics, like, you know, all the things that Tim's talked about, the buddying systems, what are you going to expect? The more you familiarize people and make them feel part of the culture and the team, like that's what drives talent to us. It drives growth. It drives innovation. You know, that's the spark. And I think that having the great technology to actually help every single people leader across the world be able to make sure that works, so everyone has the same equal, fair experience that's driving that cultural shift, that's the difference. That's the game changer. And I'm a mediocre, you know, administrator. I'll 100% admit to that to your audience today. But again, it's the tech that helps our team have an amazing experience, and that's what we share very openly with our customers, and they can make that their own experience so that they can have their own communication style, their own culture, really drive that talent. And you know, that's genuinely true. So there you go. I share it today. It's like counseling.
No, I love it. It's fun. That's why Sterling Live is great. You always got to come out, be honest, great, good, raw, organic conversation. But no, I love that response. I'm sure you're better than mediocre, but we all need a little help. So I do love the transparency there for sure. Tim, would love your thoughts on tech and how it helps with everything.
This is absolutely Wendy's bread and butter, right? So the use of an applicant tracking system or recruitment technology or HR tech, such as the Ceridian product, really allows to keep the experience consistent for all candidates, right? Whoever the hiring manager or HR manager, wherever they may be based in the world, to then have integrations or plugins into the ATS, such as, you know, background screening technology, for example, allows for a central communication function that makes it easier for the candidate and overall providing a quicker and more efficient process, meaning that Wendy doesn't need to do as much admin because she's mediocre. But when we look more specifically at, at background and ID verifications, we're seeing the Home Office adopting a digital ID strategy as they recognise the benefits that tech can bring for supporting not only ID validation for right to work and DBS checks, but as part of a wider digital ID and attributes trust framework, which is planned to go live in April. But tech generally is transforming the way that we interact with our candidates, and with more remote workforces following the pandemic, it's never played a more important role, right? Wendy absolutely agrees with that. I know from when we look at digital interviewing platforms, payroll, AI machine learning tools, chatbots, the use of video more broadly, background screening mobile, as I mentioned earlier, to support right to work, which might be in multilingual experiences. When you wrap an ATS around that as a central tool to manage the candidate experience, you are creating an engaging, simple, user-centric approach that actually provides a positive experience. It comes right back to the top of the call when we're talking about providing a positive candidate experience. And this is where partnerships across the HR and TA landscape come in, as you bring technology together and you start gluing it together from different parts of the candidate process. An example being the partnership that we share between Sterling and Ceridian. It just helps massively.
Yeah. It helps, and we all need a little help. I think that's the greatest takeaway from that. But obviously the technology is doing so much, even bringing organizations and, you know, the tools like Sterling and Ceridian together just to make things a lot easier for both employer and new employees. So great answers there. So we're talking a lot about, you know, we've already covered, you know, practical aspects of setting expectations around onboarding, you know, the technology that can help these great experiences. But let's talk about culture, because we're in an age where so many people are being brought on remotely. How are we able to communicate this company culture? So Tim, I'm going to come to you first on this question.
Okay. This is probably by far one of the more like challenging parts of the onboarding piece when you're hiring remotely. You know, how do you embrace a culture and its values when you're not physically there?
Right.
How can you promote a culture when you're not physically together? Right. And I'm sure this question and debate has been on many HR agendas over the last 2 years. Right. And with that, companies, they have to adapt to change the way that they think about onboarding. In our team, in my team personally, we've been hiring through the pandemic, and now in a virtual environment, we have to be more conscious about culture within the team, more conscious than prior. So adapting our approach to hiring and onboarding in a virtual world is uncharted territory for many. And there's probably a few things to think about that I'd say. The first probably being like prioritizing and being proactive about culture from the start of the recruitment process is crucial. More so than ever before. Building culture into all parts of, you know, recruitment, onboarding, etc. Employee brand is going to play a huge part in setting expectations around that. Interviewing, assessment, screening, onboarding. It's building culture into that process, but being conscious around the cultural message that a candidate needs to buy into and learn. And probably as well, and I think Wendy will agree with this one, multiple communication lines. So by that, I mean allowing a candidate to speak to and hear from different people within a business to understand their perspective on culture. You cannot be single threaded. You know, we need to be mindful of that from a candidate perspective. Another one being talent engagement strategy that needs to be embraced. And we can't rely on kind of physical interactions that we previously had in work. So things like interactive virtual team meetings, a need for continued social gatherings virtually, and coffee mornings or water cooler chats, all these kind of things. A good example at Sterling that we introduced recently was the use of culture champs as a way to proactively promote culture in a virtual world. It was actually a program designed around continuous engagement, and it really works. In addition, we have Culture Crusaders, which is a quarterly peer-to-peer recognition. Caitlin, that you know, that's a program that recognises employees for exemplifying the core values that we have at Sterling. So I think all these things are important to keep culture like front and centre, both pre and post hire.
Absolutely.
A few things to think about.
Yeah, and a few great things to think about. A lot of great tips for our audience there. One of the pieces that I'll pull out from what you said was, you know, your employer brand. This is crucial for companies right now because, you know, you think about your website, you think about social media, like those are digital front doors for your organization. So if I stroll over to your LinkedIn page and see, you know, your employee base, I kind of get a sense of who I'm going to be working with and, you know, whether I'm applying to the job, I just got the job offer. So that's one of the most exciting things about my role is, you know, pinning up our employees out in the social space and making sure, you know, day one, these are a list of people that you're going to be working with, and it's everything that you need to know about them. So I think employer brand is crucial, but you did also mention a lot of great other tips. Wendy, can you discuss, you know, how we can communicate company culture?
I think it's a really amazing and an integral foundational point. I'll just draw on what we have, right? So how we operate as a business, we make work life better. That is our brand promise. That is all that we are focused on, making work life better. And we do it with an on-demand, global, always on platform for the global workforce, right? And so leveraging the foundational cultural aspects, making sure that all your values are entwined and they're meaningful and they're in the business in every single aspect. If people are living the values every single day, transparency. I was transparent in my last answer, right? If you're living the values every day and they're clear and everyone owns it, then you can make sure that every candidate experience, and actually I would build a wee bit on what Tim said, I would encourage multi-conversations in that candidate experience, because then the candidate actually speaks and finds out for themselves. And if they actually build those connections and they see the value that they can contribute in the organization and how they are purposeful in the work that they do, well, it's a candidate for life. And when you have, as we talked earlier, competitive pressures and, people offering more money and all these other things that are going on, actually part of the challenge I'm looking at right now is how do I encourage the cultural shift from being so virtual over the last 2 years to actually hybrid working? Hybrid is on everyone's agenda, just like this is around, great candidate communication is a hot topic. So how do you try and encourage people to come back to the office where they feel safe and they can have the same team bonding? And so it's culture is the foundation of everything you do, and you've got to make that really meaningful in every facet of the business. And the candidate will experience that just through multiple conversations, the LinkedIn page you mentioned, Caitlin, and keep it simple.
It's a really good point, isn't it? We've focused on this culture of moving virtual, but actually now we're like, well, I've got to go and see clients. I've got to see people again. I've got to start socializing. That isn't easy. That isn't easy at all. So you're right. We've got used to 2 years being sat here working virtually, and now somehow we do need to go back to an office or a hybrid way of working. That's not easy.
I got to say, it is super exciting. I was quite nervous the first time I went to an airport that I'd remember where to go and how to even get on the Wi-Fi. But I've been with, just if you look at my LinkedIn today, I was with a colleague at a customer, and I'm going to a colleague shortly to another customer while I'm here in London. I'm so excited to see them. Some of them I'm meeting for the first time because everything is being experienced this way through some of that growth. So it's, it's about I think over communication, back to the points we talked earlier about, the more you over communicate, the more that you really ask people to be transparent about how they're feeling through the process, then you can address those concerns.
Absolutely. So we wouldn't be talking today or on this topic if Sterling and Ceridian didn't offer solutions that better enable candidate communication. So from a practical point of view, can both of you comment on what you think, your organization, Sterling and Ceridian, bring to the table? So Wendy, I'll start with you here for Ceridian.
Well, I think we covered it actually, just around work life has changed, and the trends that we've seen, over the last 18 months has probably taken on a decade worth of change. And even just the way that we are as individuals today, we're borderless. The pandemic means that talent can be anywhere. It's that we're more fluid. You need to be flatter and more flexible. Organization models have changed, and we need to maximize agility across organizations, and that move to being faster. I have a 12-year-old son, and if he doesn't know the exact time Amazon's being delivered, he's not happy. And that's our workforce today. That's our candidates today. They want to know these things. Skills as well, actually matching the right skill set to the vacancy and being able to do that in a really easy way so that, people and recruitment managers and the recruitment teams can identify the talents really quickly. Augmented, helping data-informed decision making, and that's often really challenging for a global organization. And most importantly, always on. How frustrated do you get if you go to an app and you can't check out your bank account because they're timed out? So actually technology platforms, when you are a global organization, needs to always be on, no latency, no delay. It needs to really help us in this new hyper interconnected world. And that is fundamentally what we offer in that make work life better perspective with Dayforce. And I think if I flip to the partnership model and the amazing work that the entire Sterling team across the world do in our partnership model, is making an area where we don't have the expertise that you do, and how we make that seamless integration experience work so that it gives a really heightened, really compliant way of operating for our global customers. And no better than going with the experts, which is why I love the partnership we have.
Well, thank you for that. And I think the entire Sterling team thanks you as well, including Tim, obviously. But Tim, can you go ahead and discuss, what Sterling brings to the table here?
Yeah, when it kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier, but when you bring in technology together or solutions together, it's partnerships and an ecosystem that you need. And the partnership that we've got, Ceridian, is great. And it goes back to, 2016, I think. It's a platinum partnership, 95 plus integrations that are interactive and seamless and enhanced integrations. When you combine the two technologies, from a communication standpoint, it just improves the whole experience for the candidate. An interface that's dual branded, candidate centric, and centralizes everything. As I said before, when you look at Sterling specifically, we operate a native mobile first experience through our candidate hub. Smooth, intuitive, engaging, background screening experience on any device. We know that candidates now will want to fill in these the information, their data, on a train or sat on the couch, or just easily do it on their phone. It's a customized experience with instructions, dynamic questions. They allow candidates to upload documents right from one click from their device. Also, we've got to think about this from a global perspective. And both our organizations are global, so it's a regionalized experience in multiple languages. It allows, if we look at right to work specifically in the UK, it allows the process to be complete in session, utilizing like facial recognition, AI, machine learning, all these things. And we also provide guidance materials in multiple languages and videos to support. So we are literally overloading the candidate with information, communicating to them constantly to give them information to make it easier. And they always have candidate support teams on hand that are readily available to make contact when needed. So it's kind of an overload of information to give the candidate what they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think both of our organizations are giving the candidates what they need. So I want to elaborate on that a little bit more. I want to talk about, client experience, candidate experience, and stories that both Ceridian and Sterling have in regards to how we've helped our customers. So, Tim, I'll start with you. So any practical real life examples where all of these experiences have been felt by our customers and also their candidates and their employees?
I don't mind going first. Yeah, we've got lots. One would be, we actually supported the NHS professionals with the vaccination program, where we actually had to stand up a service with extremely high volumes in a very, very short period of time. Such was the urgency of the project early last year. And with that, we actually created a dedicated landing page for the candidate to have support that included things like FAQs, guidance, information. And we actually also created a specific video for the candidate that highlights the process, what they could expect, what was about to happen. Mm-hmm. And that was a tailored video specifically for NHSP candidates and relevant for the vaccination rollout. So it's tailoring the communication and the message specifically for the candidate and also the client. So that worked really, really well. It's a fantastic relationship, and one that remains today. Another one would be, we support Lego to support their global child safeguarding framework. Fantastic client. Candidate experience for them, for the Lego group, is crucial. It's so important. And that was about designing a solution where the candidates know that it's people, it's culture, and the strong values are resting on a foundation of trust and safety. So the message and the communication to the candidates has to be clear throughout their process. I've probably got more, but I'm sure Wendy's got hundreds as well.
No, absolutely. And I must say, if you are watching live, so NHS and Lego are truly two of my favorite stories that I've heard, at Sterling. So if you are watching live or watching this on demand, I highly recommend going to sterling.co.uk and reading the stories. Very powerful and just, really showcasing a lot of what we spoke about today. Wendy, would love to hear examples from you and Ceridian.
Oh, well, we love our customers too at Ceridian. So it's hard to pick, actually. Yeah. But I'm going to draw upon just a couple of examples. I think the care sector and the NHS, they were hard hit over the last couple of years, and particularly the way that they've risen to the challenge. And one I'm particularly fond of is Cornwall Care. They're a large care provider in Cornwall. They've been using Dayforce for a couple of years, and they originally embarked on a really ambitious digital transformation strategy back in January 2020, right at the very start. And we have an element in Dayforce called Team Relate, and we also have our engagement modules as well. Well, the project lead there described that really was bringing all their employees together because it touched every single member of their company. And they had mobile adoption of over 90% on Dayforce. So people were interacting on their phone opposed to doing it through a desktop. And it helped them to really drive better insights into that employee experience. So just to dive a little deeper, Team Relate is where the team members can say how they feel. And that information is fed back. The engagement scores are other ways that you can do deep analytics on, how the organization is feeling and if there's something that you need to dive into. So it just draws the eye to where is support needed from that HR lens. And really that Team Relate aspect of it and understanding the employee engagement, well, that helped them pull it all together. And what they actually shared was that because they learned what their staff needed, that helped them to drive how to look after them. And of course, I adore Costa Coffee, a mutual client, and huge, my favorite coffee across the UK, coconut flat white, if anyone's offering. And they went live with this. In fact, I think it was about a year ago, we did a similar webinar like this with the head of people at Costa. And, they had a lot of challenges. They had baristas that were, not working. They were on furlough. They had people that were coming back in, and actually they used Dayforce as their communication portal. Not to mention the challenge that every payroller saw on a Sunday night when new legislation was being rolled out. And they were able to do it all through the communication, the configure. Everything was driven through Dayforce for 18,500 employees across the UK. And again, most of it was done on their phones because baristas aren't issued laptops. So to make that experience, both candidate through to employee experience, it's about how do you get the most meaning and communication to the people that are picking it up. And, even through all of the challenges of the pandemic, they've done a phenomenal job keeping really high levels of engagement, and they still have the best coffee. So I'm really pleased they're back open again.
Yeah. Definitely. And two great examples there. And I must point out, if you're watching live on LinkedIn right now, the Cornwall Care story and the Costa Coffee are both there for Ceridian. So go check those customer stories out as well. And I must say, a coconut flat white sounds phenomenal right now. It's still the morning for me. So any type of caffeine that I can get, aside from this episode, I feel like I'm getting energy from this episode after this. So if anyone from the UK wants to ship that over to the US, please do. But at this time, I do want to ask our audience that's watching live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, if you have any final questions for Tim and Wendy, please go ahead and submit them in the comment section across all three of these platforms. While we wait for any final questions to come through, I want to get just some quick, tips from the two of you in regards to candidate communication experience, everything that we spoke about today. So Tim, I'm going to come to you. Quick top tips for our audience.
Yeah, I think it's making communication, like we've previously said, front and center. right from recruitment through to sort of embedding communication literally all the way through the recruitment process, right? Embedding it into everyday working life and culture. There's some good stories that have been shared. I mean, the Costa message is purely about communication, communicating with employees and new hires who are hiring quickly throughout the country is a really good one, and making communication front and center. And it's been more conscious about it. I think it's been more conscious than ever before, and building it into all parts of working life and culture is crucial. And then probably one more would be, again, talking about what we've talked about today, but utilizing technology and the tools that you have available to enhance that communication. Are you utilizing all the functionality that you have, or the tools to make it easier for both employees and candidates? So I think a couple of things: embedding it and making it literally every part of working life, and really making sure that you are utilizing the technology that you have available.
Yep, that always on communication, very, very critical for all organizations. Wendy, final top, quick tips from you.
She's
Are you
gone
there,
quiet.
Wendy? Oh no! I really liked today's conversation. I hope she just didn't bounce. I thought we all liked it, but Wendy, if you come back on, please just give me a.
I'm here.
Back? Awesome, great. I didn't want to end the show with that. No, it's all
good.
We're
talking about technology.
It happens every episode, I think, honestly. Sometimes you mention tech, that person's Wi-Fi goes out. So I think like Technology Universe is like listening to Sterling Live, and it's like, let's mess up this episode. No, totally fine. I do want to leave our audience though with top tips from you.
Oh, well, just to piggyback off of what I heard from Tim there, using tech to communicate, listening tools, employee listening tools, surveys, internal social media. We talked before about how do you make sure that your culture and your values are entwined in everything to give purpose, because we talked again, people aren't just looking for pay or stability. They're looking for flexibility. They're looking for purposeful work in what they do, and technology can give you that edge. So for me, if you can empower your employees by embedding that value across the organization and having the technology help you optimize the experience, it doesn't just help your candidates, but it helps everyone throughout their entire career journey. And we want them to be with us in our organization for longer. And we say it with the same goes for our customers. We want them to have the best talent in their organization so that they can continue to grow and be great.
I love it. A couple of things coming through on LinkedIn here. So just a comment from Harris Bornstein, which is Sterling's head of partners and alliances. He doesn't have a question, but he's big shout out to Wendy and the Ceridian team. He says, we truly love our partners. Today was a great conversation. And thank you to the two of you for sharing these insights. I agree. So definitely 100% to what Harris just said. And we do have another question coming in through on LinkedIn. And I think, Tim, this is a question for you, but I really do think we covered it in the entire episode. So my recommendation is just to go back and watch. But do you currently integrate partner with ATS providers, really helping to complete an end-to-end seamless candidate journey? Yes, Sterling does. But Tim, I'll let you elaborate on that a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and switch our experience here because it's just the two of us. I believe we lost Wendy. But can you go ahead and just answer that real quickly? I know we answered it on the show. But.
Yeah, the answer is yes, absolutely. So Sterling integrates with numerous different types of applicant tracking and HR systems such as Ceridian. So happy to have a conversation at any point regarding who they are and how we might be able to integrate to make that candidate journey a lot more seamless.
Absolutely. The question did come in on LinkedIn. So if you, the individual who had asked if you are still watching, definitely, and I see that Wendy's back, so I'm going to pop her back in. There she is. But definitely, look on our website, reach out to us. If you are looking to integrate to partner, definitely can have that conversation. Speaking of conversations, today was a phenomenal conversation with Tim and Wendy. I could not be more thrilled with how this episode went. I love this discussion. This is not only a hot topic, like we had said many times on the episode, but it's a crucial and an important topic for all organizations. And we're, right when you talk to a candidate until you're bringing them on to day one, in their 90-day plan until even 2 years later with the organization, how are you still communicating with these individuals? So it truly, truly was a great episode. At this time, we don't have any further questions. So I do want to thank our audience for tuning in live today. Also, if you're watching it on demand, thank you for taking the time to watch. And a special, special thank you to our guests, Wendy and Tim. You guys were great. Outstanding. Loved it.
Thank you.
But yes, you guys were truly great. And I hope to have the two of you on another episode of Sterling Live. But with that being said, again, thank you to our audience. Thank you to our guests. And we will catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.